Okay, first headline today. Our new film, Am I Racist?, finished its first weekend at the box office, and it was a huge success. We were top 5 in the box office among all films currently in theaters. And in fact, we beat a widely released mainstream Hollywood film that also released this weekend called Killer's Game, I believe. And that film was in about 1,000 more theaters than we were, and I mean, certainly had a much larger marketing budget and all that kind of stuff. So we finished the weekend with about $4.5 million. And by the way, our production budget on the film was $3 million. So surpassed our production budget in 3 days. Not too shabby, I have to say. And probably what I'm most proud of is that we were also in the top 5 for opening weekend box office for any film in our genre in the past decade. And we're also the top grossing documentary of this year. So it's all amazing. I'm humbled by it, grateful for it. Grateful to everybody who came out and supported the film. If you didn't come out and support it, then you're dead to me. Unless you support it this weekend, then I can forgive you. And this has also given me an appreciation that I never had before, an understanding of how enormously difficult it is to compete in the film industry. And to begin with, it's really hard to make a movie. I mean, even making a bad movie is hard. I don't know that from experience. My 2 movies are good, but I do know that just making a movie in general is just a hard thing to do. Making a good movie is even harder. Getting a movie into theaters is a Herculean task, we discovered. Getting a wide release once you're in theaters, even more so. And then having any kind of success in theaters, making it to the top 5, even the top 10 is like almost impossible. It doesn't seem impossible from the outside because movies are in the top 10 every week, of course. But the vast majority of films that are made every year never appear in the top 5 in the box office. Vast majority aren't there at all, aren't even in theaters. So, and in our situation, we were blessed to have 1,500 screens on opening weekend, which is great for a documentary. But every other film, I believe, in the top 10 had more screens than us. The films in front of us had like double or triple the number of screens. Many of the films that finished behind us had hundreds more screens than we did, even 1,000 more screens. Then there's the marketing budget. You have to market your movie, of course. You have to get people. And marketing a movie means really like marketing anything else. It's like you can't just tell people about it. You've probably noticed that with how often we've talked about this film, is because you can't just tell people about it once. You have to like drill it into their heads until they can recall it on their own, right? You want people just like unprompted. And with a movie, you want to get the public to the point where if you were to go up to them and say, "Hey, what movies are coming out this weekend?" They'll name your movie. It'll be the first thing they name. And mainstream Hollywood films, of course, they have, this is the task for them, and they've got like $80 million, $100 million to spend on marketing so that even if you don't want to know that their movie is coming out this weekend, you'll know it. We had a tiny fraction of that, I can tell you. And so much smaller budget, many fewer screens. That's the obstacle that you have to get over. And this is not me, certainly not complaining at all, quite the opposite. I'm trying to express gratitude and awe because, you just don't know. You don't know how big the mountain is until you start climbing it very often. And sometimes you start climbing it and then you look and you're like, holy crap, what did I get myself into? But you got to press on ahead. And in this case, it has gone better than my wildest imagination to this point. And the challenge is to build on the momentum. We always knew this would be a word of mouth kind of operation for us, because when you don't have the huge marketing budget, then your primary mode of marketing is just to get some people to see it, and then those people hopefully will market the movie for you if they love it. And fortunately, our word of mouth is very strong. We have a 99% verified audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that 99% of the people who actually went and saw it liked the movie, which to me is also pretty mind-blowing. And it's an interesting dichotomy because, with Rotten Tomatoes, we're very accustomed to seeing this thing where the audience score for a film, especially if it's a film from a conservative, we all know the audience score is often like 90% or higher. And then you'll see that critic score and it's like 25%, right? So you got the fresh audience score, the rotten critic score, and we're all used to seeing that. In our case, it's an even more stark contrast because you've got a 99% score with the audience, and then from mainstream critics, we have no score. They're not even going to score it. To this point, and maybe this will change today, maybe it'll change tomorrow, but to this point, precisely 0 mainstream critics in mainstream publications have reviewed the film. They've all been sent the film, and at this point, they certainly know that it exists. But to this point, 0 have even reviewed it. So when they don't agree with you politically, they'll reflexively give you a bad review. What we're discovering is if they really, really don't agree with you, if they really hate you, then they'll just refuse to acknowledge that your movie exists at all. And of course, I'm biased because it's my movie and I like the movie, but I think one of the problems that the mainstream critics are having, and one of the reasons why they're at this point not reviewing it, is that they know that if they review it, they're going to have to at least give us some credit. Like they're not going to be able to come out and say that it's just a terrible movie. I'm sure they'll give it a bad review ultimately, right? But they'll give it bad enough that it can qualify as rotten on the Rotten Tomatoes score. But they'll have to admit that, they'll have to give it, to give any kind of honest review, they'd have to give it some props. Because, it is a funny movie. And I don't care who you are. If you watch the movie, you're going to laugh. I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. You're going to laugh if you watch it. And they don't want to have to do that. They don't want to have to give us any props. They don't want to have to say that, yeah, Matt Walsh is a horrible bigot, he's a terrible person, here are all the problems with the movie, but it is entertaining and I did laugh. They don't want to say that. And they're worried if they do say that their own audience is going to be very angry. So that's the issue so far. And like I said, maybe it'll change. I think that, when you, this is what we discovered with What Is a Woman, when you have a film and you don't put it in theaters and you put it on the platform, one of the disadvantages there is that you're kind of staying in your own lane. And then kind of the mainstream media can justify ignoring it because they could say, well, that's not, it doesn't even count. Once you put it in theaters, and then especially if you show up in the box office, then it's a lot harder to justify ignoring it. So maybe after the results this weekend, they'll start reviewing it. And I mainly want them to review it just because I'm very interested in how they're going to navigate this. It's interesting to me. It's a real problem for them. It'd be much less of a problem if our attempts at comedy in the film were just lame and unfunny and it didn't work. Then I think we'd already have 60 reviews because they'd be very eager to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we watched that. It was terrible." They're not going to be able to say that, so we'll see. We'll see what they do. But that's why, again, we appreciate your support on the film. Deeply appreciate it. And if you haven't watched it yet, then please go to the theater this week or this weekend. If you did watch it and you liked it, then tell your friends, post it on social media. This is how we're going to keep the engine chugging along in the box office here. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.